Hello, friends. Welcome to the show. It's a beautiful day today, isn't it? I'm your host, Zach McDaniel, and welcome to Screen Pass. Today, instead of doing our top performers and performances first, let's do the not top performers and performances first. Starting at number 5, Nebraska's run defense. Nebraska played Wisconsin, and Wisconsin had 353 rush yards, and that is the most Nebraska has allowed since Melvin Gordon's record breaking 408 in 2014. Number 4, Florida State gave up a touchdown with 6 seconds to go against Miami, and Miami ended up breaking the 7-game win streak that Florida State had on them. Florida State is now 1-3. That lone win coming against Wake Forest. Number 3, Florida. They missed an extra point that would have tied the game against LSU. It would have been 17-17, but they missed the extra point and lost 17-16 against an LSU team that the previous week had lost to Troy in Death Valley. So not good for the Gators right now. Number 2, Vanderbilt's defense. Georgia had a couple of 100-yard rushers, Sony Michel and Nick Chubb. Sony Michel had 150 rush yards and a touchdown. Nick Chubb had 138 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Number 1, the number 1 not top performer or performance of Week 6, Oklahoma Sooners. It is the first time in 27 years that Oklahoma has lost to Iowa State. Iowa State's backup quarterback was getting a start in this game. Kyle Kemp threw for 343 yards, 3 touchdowns in the 38-31 win against Oklahoma. This doesn't necessarily mean Oklahoma is out of the playoff race. It's just going to set them back a little bit. They have Texas this weekend. Now let's move in to the top performers of Week 6. Number 5, TCU quarterback Kenny Hill, Kenny Thrill Hill, Kenny Trill Hill, whatever you want to call him. He's back, and he is amazing. He had 3 touchdowns in the 31-24 win against West Virginia, 1 rushing, 1 passing, and 1 receiving touchdown. He had 264 total yards of offense. Number 4, Western Michigan. Western Michigan played Buffalo in a game that went to 7 overtimes. They totaled 139 points, which is an FBS record for the highest scoring game in the history of FBS. It was also tied for the longest FBS game ever played. Western Michigan won 71-68. Number 3, Iowa State linebacker / quarterback Joel Lanning. He played 78 total snaps, 57 on defense, 13 on offense, 8 on special teams. He finished with 25 yards passing, 35 yards rushing, 8 tackles, a sack, and a fumble recovery against Oklahoma. Number 2, Riley Ferguson, quarterback for Memphis. He went 34 for 48 passing, for 431 yards and 7 touchdowns in the 70-31 win against UConn. His 7 touchdowns tied a school record and American Athletic Conference record for it was a single game record previously set by Paxton Lynch in 2015. The number one top performer of the week, Khalil Tate. Arizona's backup quarterback set a single game FBS record for rushing yards by a quarterback, which was 327 yards on only 14 carries. He had 142 yards passing. He went 11 for 12 passing, which gave him 469 total yards of offense, and he threw for 5 touchdowns, or he had 5 touchdowns. So that was the top performer of the week. Now let's talk about the upsets of Week 6. I got 4 upsets. Number 4, LSU at Florida. Florida was favored. LSU had just lost to Troy at home, and LSU came into Gainesville and won 17-16. Number 3, Michigan State at Michigan. Michigan was favored at home. They lost to Michigan State 14-10. John O'Korn, Michigan's quarterback, threw for he had 3 interceptions that were very costly. So Michigan lost to Michigan State. Number 2, Louisville at NC State. Louisville was favored in this game. NC State beat them rather handily. Lamar Jackson's Heisman stock is falling rapidly with already 2 losses this year. NC State got the win at home. Much deserved win for that program. Number 1, Iowa State at Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a playoff contender, but they lost to Iowa State. Nobody saw it coming. Iowa State won 38-31. Now, I'm going to give you my playoff prediction picks. How do I think the playoffs, like what would it look like right now if I had to choose the 4 teams right now? Number 4, I'm going to go with TCU. They got a really good win against West Virginia this past week. They beat Oklahoma State in Stillwater a couple weeks ago. Going TCU. Number 3, Ohio State. A lot of people think they're not going to make it because they still got to go through Penn State and Michigan. I think they're going to do it. Ohio State. Number 2, a no-brainer, Alabama. I don't think Alabama's going to have any losses. And the same goes with my number 1 pick, Clemson. No losses. Those are 2 of the best teams in the country, Clemson and Alabama, and we are most likely going to have a rematch. Now, for the final segment of the day, I got 6 picks. Let's pick the games for this next weekend. Number 6, Texas A&M at Florida. Florida looked really bad last week against LSU. Texas A&M lost last week, but it was to Alabama, and it was by 8 points. So I'm going Texas A&M. They're going to beat Florida this week. Number 5, Navy at Memphis. Memphis had a really good game last week. Riley Ferguson threw for 7 touchdowns, but I'm going with Navy. It's going to be a really high-scoring game, but in the end, Memphis is not going to be able to stop Navy's rushing attack. Number 4, Georgia Tech at Miami. Miami got a really good win last week at Florida State. So a lot of people think, they're still going to be celebrating or whatever. And Georgia Tech's going to come into Miami and basically crush them. Not so fast. I'm still going Miami. They are a contender in the ACC. They'll win this one. I'm going Miami. Number 3, Texas Tech at West Virginia. West Virginia lost last week, so they're probably going to be pretty angry, and they're going to come out firing on all cylinders. Will Grier, he's been playing very good the whole season. I'm going West Virginia for this one. Number 2, Oklahoma at Texas, the Red River Showdown, Red River rivalry. Oklahoma had a letdown last week at Iowa State against Iowa State. Texas won in overtime, 40-34 against Kansas State. But Oklahoma is going to be really mad that they got beat by Iowa State. They're going to come out hot, and I think they're going to win the rivalry this year. I'm going Oklahoma Sooners. Number 1, Utah at USC. Utah lost last week to Stanford 23-20, and I think USC is still really mad. I know all these teams are really mad because they lost, so they're going to come out firing on all cylinders. Like I said before, USC is still hot about that loss against Washington State. I'm going with the Trojans. You can't stop Sam Darnold. He's still a contender for the Heisman, I think. I think they're going to get it turned around, maybe. I'm going USC for this one. And that is it for today's episode of Screen Pass. Follow Screen Pass on Twitter at @screen_pass. And that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.